You're smart, you're inquisitive, always pushing yourself to be the best you can be. Let's face it, everyone wants to look and feel their best, but you maybe have no idea where to start. Well, I'm going to show you how to create the younger you.
I'm on top of the world, now I'm living, and the good just gets better, keeps on giving. Not even close to the end, it's just beginning. Life is getting lighter while the days are getting brighter, yeah. And it's a good, I won't even worry anymore. Took all my cares, still can kick them all out the door. Go on and try, come and tell me what you're waiting for. Move and keep them going till your life is overflowing, yeah.
Welcome to the younger you. Each week, I'll be giving you the information on those questions you want to know, but are too afraid to ask. Questions like how to create the perfect body shape and how to have a healthier mind, body and soul. Maybe you've been wanting to have some work done, or you just want to look younger without the cosmetic surgery. Well, I'll be helping both men and women answering those questions and many more during this fantastic journey. Well, today I've broken up the show into 3 segments: physical, emotional and inspirational. We'll be starting with the physical. Now, of course, let me introduce you to our first guest, Eric and Inez. How are you today? You are our resident mental experts. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to ask you a quick question. Let's get straight into it. What does the younger you mean to you? What do those words actually mean?
To me personally, I'm not sure it's per se possible to be younger, actually, but it's certainly possible to work towards a more alive, active, younger experience and a better, improved experience in life.
Yeah, I think the younger you is that capturing that youthful part of yourself. I think of my 90-year-old grandfather who's still running around like he was 18 years old. So it's those people that keep all the whimsy and wonder of youth in their hearts and souls as they approach life.
I love that. Well, you know what? I took this question to the streets. I took it out to the public to find out what they actually thought of it. Let's have a look.
Well, I think it means keeping yourself as healthy and active as you can so you can have more life in your years as well as more years in your life.
I guess for me, just memories of when I was younger, more so than, a youthful version of myself now.
I think when I'm 50, I'm going to look back and think, man, I wish I was 30, or I think that'll be the younger me when I'm 50.
So, looking at that, they're pretty sane responses, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I actually thought it would have been a little bit more in depth. I thought the public would have been, well, the younger you means this to me, and be a little bit more precise. Eric?
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me, though, is that each one of them talked about the way they were approaching life, and some of them talked about thinking about how things were when they were younger, and then they think about having more gusto and more passion for life. Not one of them that I heard mentioned, well, I need to change myself physically so I appear younger.
Interesting. I did another question. I put this to the streets as well. What did you think about society's obsession on beauty? So let's take a look at that.
Well, I certainly think it's a great industry, but at the same time that it's a little bit too obsessive. And then I think I raised my 2 children to say that they need to love themselves, love each other, and not always worry about how they look.
There's a lot of pressure to look good, but I don't think it's over the top. I think most of the time I just feel like I should present my best self.
I think there's a lot of competition out there.
I don't know, it doesn't affect me as much, but I can see other people struggle with it.
I think our whole society is overly, to be honest, I think we're overly focused on appearance.
Eric, you were whispering here a minute ago. What were you saying?
I think we were both particularly struck by the woman who talked about it being competitive, how you look is competitive, so that there seems to be, I think that she probably struck a chord that most people in society feel, that we're constantly, both men and women, and I think men more than ever, are constantly surveying people to see how do I compare, and how then can I look better than the person that I'm comparing myself to.
Well, this was another question I was interested to see how everyone responded on the street. I was quite interested to see what their thoughts of was, is the pressure the same for both men and women? Take a look.
I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old son, and I see it so much more with my daughter. If you're a girl, you're reading the fashion magazines, you see all the models. If you're a boy, you're not really necessarily that interested in fashion. You're not going to be looking at models all the time.
I think some men do feel it, but I feel like women feel like there is more pressure.
Women compete against each other more, so even
more so than the pressure that other men might put on them.
Within the women realm, I think there's such a pressure to look and feel your best and to always be on top of your game, and I feel like for men it's not quite that standard there.
What do you think? Same pressure on women as men?
We've known for years that women get bombarded with, this is the idealized image, this is how you should look. Men, not so much, but really we saw some real changes in the late 80s where if you walk through Barnes & Noble and you walk through the men's fitness, every man has a shirt off, has very chiseled abs, and so men more and more and more are getting bombarded with, this is how you should look. The more they're bombarded, the more I think they internalize that and say, this is how I should look, and I'm less satisfied with how I do. Yeah, I think that men are definitely more competitive, and we do know that if you're better looking, doors open for you, and they open earlier and sooner. And so I think that, yeah, I do think that men definitely can be much more competitive with one another, but I believe...
But they never admit it.
They would never admit it, no. I certainly wouldn't.
Funny thing is because there was another question I asked everyone on the street. Would they ever get cosmetic surgery? Have a look.
Interesting.
I'm not for it. I think a lot of people think it's going to make their lives better, and where the answer is inside, loving ourselves and accepting ourselves the way we are.
I have had plastic surgery, and so yes, you have to absolutely be ready mentally because it changes your appearance for the better. And there's a part of you when you get it done that it's for the worse because you look at yourself differently and you see yourself differently.
I've tried, but my husband, he's like, you look great the way you are.
If that makes you truly happy, then I suggest you do that. If blonder hair and a bigger chest and higher cheekbones make you that person, then by all means do that.
I love that. You know the lady with the shorter hair? She was 70 years of age. And I thought to myself, oh, you've had surgery. Not one skerrick whatsoever. What do you think of that? I was really happy to hear that everyone had a really positive attitude about it all.
I really loved when the lady that said she had surgery said you need to be ready emotionally for it because it does change the way you look and the way you're used to looking and when you look at yourself in the mirror. However, I think it's crucial that you explore why you do that, why you want to do that. Are you utterly happy with yourself and your entire life? Then it's probably not going to fix that. Is there something that you feel like you need to, you can do to enhance your well-being? Sure. Yeah, I think it's an individual choice. I would just always caution to explore the reason why you feel you need to do that.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, before the break, we were talking with Eric and Inez, our mental health experts, about being young physically. Well, I took it to the man on the streets and asked all about the emotional side of things. Let's take a look.
My mental well-being, I think, it really makes a difference for me. The less stress I have, I just feel healthier. I feel like I have more energy. I feel like my face looks healthier and glows more. And so I feel like you have to work on your mental health and take a little time for yourself as well.
You know, anything that we can do to help ourselves look better sometimes helps ourselves feel better as well.
I think your mental and emotional well-being is the most important part, and I think that is what makes you healthy and beautiful.
Mentally, I do math problems at night before I go to bed, so I try to keep very mentally alert. I teach. I think you can't just focus on one thing. You've got to be well balanced.
I think it's very important. I think staying physically active and staying fit is a big part of your emotional health, and I think both those things are very important for a balanced lifestyle.
Eric?
Yeah, I love what they had to say. And in particular, I like the woman who said that that she feels so much better when she's managing her stress. And for most of us, that's about prioritizing those things that are most valuable to us.
How do you know what is a priority? I get frustrated when people say that to me because I'm like, well, which is first? How do you prioritize? And how do you do it when you're doing everyday life? I think you've got to step away to prioritize.
I think a lot of people do actually have to have a retreat. And sometimes I even ask people to do that in my office. I have them do where they'll step outside of their life, maybe even physically in the office, and take a perspective of their life, and then maybe walk into what they want their life to look like 5 years from now. And what they see when they're standing there as themselves 5 years from now then they can say, this is what I need to do today to be that person 5 years from now. Because you're right, you can get so immersed into day-to-day life that you lose sight of what your priorities really are.
So hearing what you just said, then I'm thinking to myself, do you go and see a counsellor first to actually get away from, you know, the everyday life, and then help and get the counsellor to give you advice on how to break that cycle, go to a spa, go to a retreat, take some time out from your everyday life? Is that a great way to start?
I think so. I think taking some time for yourself every single day, whether that be at a spa.
That's
or
not always possible, Eric. Come on, let's be real.
Well,
let's be really real on that. I think, you know, going into, if your everyday life.
I'm going to challenge you on that.
Okay.
I'm going to challenge you on that, because one time I thought I was going to be really clever with a person who became my mentor. And he said that everything in life is a reminder to do something. And so I think there are opportunities all the time for us to stop focusing on the traffic, stop focusing on how anxious we are and the clock, and get into the moment and take even a few moments for ourselves. It's just training ourselves to do it.
And slow down. I find in my life and with a lot of my friends and also clients, if they slow down, they get so much more done much quicker and much more effectively.
No, good call, good call. I think having those tools in your bag, it does help a lot. How do you find those tools? You're saying maybe go to a counsellor first, having the retreats. Is that the best way to start?
I think maybe buying a book.
Yeah.
Who's got time to read? Is that what you're saying?
That's important to make time for that too.
Exactly. Tell me what you think about how it helps you being mentally stable and ready to get on with your life. How does it make you happier mentally?
I think you don't lose track. You don't get all caught up in all those daily things that you do. You're able to assess and take a good look and have a good perspective and then make decisions accordingly.
I think if you're doing your own work, you're defining what happiness is for you. So I think by its very nature, if you're doing your mental work and you're a lifelong learner, like that woman said, you're seeking, what does happiness mean to me? But just the fact of taking the time to create the definition in and of itself is going to put you far and beyond most people that are wandering around just kind of doing life.
You will also have something in the future to look back to and say, wow, look at all the things that I did. Take a little time to have some fun. Create new experiences. Enjoy life. Have something, experience something you can talk about.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when I took this next question to the street, I was basically saying, what do you think is more important, mind or body? Interesting to hear what they say.
Well, it's important to have both, but it's much easier to achieve a healthy body. It's much easier to change your diet. It's much easier to say, I'm going to get out and take a walk every day, or try a dance class, or do something that is going to make me more active. A healthy mind, that's a lot more work, and it's a lot more elusive.
I think they're connected, your mind and your body, but I think we should be more focused that we're all right with ourselves rather than what other people think about us.
I mean, I can be physically fit and have no injuries or no illnesses, but if I'm depressed or suicidal, what good does it do me? No, mental health is every bit, if not more so, important than physical fitness.
Funny, I actually thought a lot of people were going to say body. With the obsession that we have now on what we see in the magazines, what we see on TV, what we read about, what we see about absolutely everything, I thought a lot of people would have said to me, hey Troy, it's all about the body, it's all about the looks. But
well, you find people that think their body is the thing that carries the head around, and that's all that matters, and neglect their body, and then you'll find the ones that really think this is all that matters. You know, they're just skin deep physical health. It's both.
What do you think, Eric? Were you surprised?
I don't think I was necessarily surprised, no, because I think obviously we're in the mental health profession, and so we have people who are seeking to grow all the time. And I think that maybe it's just because I have a little more hope for my fellow man.
But you must see, do people come into you and say, well, I'm mentally not right, but boy, I look good. Do you find that? Do you come across that a lot?
No. Because even, and I think of some of the people that I've worked with throughout the years who are physically very, very healthy, who have bodies that most people would give their right arm for, so to speak, and they still feel like there's an emptiness there. And you know that because they're coming to see me. If you every day wake up and maybe you're pursuing your physical health, but you still feel like something's missing in your life, then I would embrace that question. What is it that's missing in my life? The next step is, well, gosh, I'm not quite happy, but I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Well, what would your definition of happiness be? You'd be surprised how many people, even 70 years old, have come into my office and they've never, ever sat down in their entire lives and said, hey, what is my personal definition of happiness? I've always sort of been looking for it, but I've never really sat down to find it for myself.
I like that. I like that myself. I better check in with you. Erica Nez and I were talking about how being youthful isn't just about being physically fit. It's a combination of mind, body and soul. I was wondering what the public thought about this, so of course I took it to the streets again.
Again, I'm 40. I think it's more spiritual. You feel young because you have the ability to get up and about, but that it's a way of happiness and it's a way of feeling like you can get, through the day.
I think it's more spiritual. It's an attitude, but I don't think if you feel like your body's out of shape or all of those things play into your spiritual attitude, because if you struggle walking upstairs, you're going to feel older.
I think it's more spiritual. I think that because you see like older generations of people and they're still happy and they're youthful and they're going on adventure and they're loving life, and that's still considered youthful. And so I think that's something that like transcends a mere age, and I think that's something that you carry with you with your life.
It all comes from inside. You can have beautiful clothes, you can have great makeup and hair and be in perfect shape, but if you don't feel good inside, you need something to fill yourself.
I think that a good mixture of all of them is great, and that's kind of like my cop-out. But if I were to pick only one, I think it would be the soul. It's something that I believe we carry with us, kind of like the youth question. It's something that we carry with us throughout, because our bodies deteriorate, we become older, we become saggier, gravity takes effect.
How do you feel about that?
About what?
Growing old.
I think it's awesome because I get to live in a different mindset. Becoming older brings with it certain characteristics that I haven't experienced yet.
Physical or spiritual? I was interested to hear what they were actually saying. What do you think, Eric?
I'm always interested to hear what people say about that. Spirituality, typically what people are asking for is they're wanting to do life differently. They're wanting to feel differently in their heart, in a more guttural level when they're asking for their spirit. And really what I find that what they're really wanting to do is they're wanting more joy and they're wanting to cope better.
So when I was asking the questions about, what's it like to have a healthier spirit, is that important? And we got some of those responses. What do you think?
I think we got some really good answers. So spirituality, that's for most people an individual, everybody's, yeah, and everybody has their own take on that. But I really loved the attitude. That was the theme throughout, that there's a certain attitude, and I think it has to do with keeping that gusto of life alive, I mean, with physical health, there's some limitations for some people. However, with your mental and emotional health, you can work on that no matter how you're doing physically.
So that adage is, I'm 75 but I still feel 21. How are people feeling like that? How do they get that feeling? How do you do that? Because I'm feeling old. I don't know whether my mind is making me feel like that or it's just my body.
I think often it's our minds. It's how we're approaching our everyday life and whether we're letting that weigh upon us. And I think that's what I hear all the time is I got this weight on my shoulders. I feel like I got the weight of the world. The fun thing is when I call my grandfather who just turned 90, he says, I can still whoop my weight in pussycats.
Oh, really?
And so he's just, there's just those people who can say, that are still seeing the world in the bright way that children see it, and they're still in the moment, and they're really investing in the moment instead of all the moments that are gonna come. And instead of all the moments that went before, they're in this moment, and they're finding joy and creating joy in this moment. And I think that's what creates youthfulness.
That's a really big one too. Are you going to be looking ahead of you, just the next thing to do, the nenext task to accomplish, or is there some openness, some positive, some taking yourself out of your comfort zone? Maybe you should try that if you're feeling old right now. You know, because that's really what's exhilarating and what keeps that life energy and that learning and the new experiences alive. Gives you a really rich experience.
So we've talked about physical and emotional. So when we discuss inspirational, I think to myself, where do I grab that inspiration from? You were saying, live in the moment, live now. Don't try and think too far ahead and don't try and think too far back. Where do I get the inspiration from? Because if we get inspiration from the covers of magazines and all the things that are out there, they're not always a good thing. What do you think?
I look at people that I adore, and you know these people. They're no matter what age they are, they appear open, youthful, all sorts of things, and makes me wonder why is that? How do they do that?
Yeah, I agree with Inez. I think that I think inspiration. I think if you spend too much time thinking about what your future is and you're planning that, I think you limit your ability to have inspiration, because I think inspiration is when you have those moments when you're being really true to yourself and a door opens up for you, and you have maybe even a paradigm shift. I was heading in this direction, but you know what? I need to head this direction.
Is it that aha moment? Is
I
it
think
the
for a
light
lot
bulb that goes on?
I think for a lot of people, it's an aha moment. That light bulb comes on. I've been devoting myself to this, but you know what? I feel a lot of passion when I envision doing this, and I think that is an aha moment for a lot of people. And sometimes that becomes that as a result of people working to try to figure out what they want to do. I have a client that was a financial planner who just decided he wants to be a social worker, and he's so much more comfortable in his skin. He looks differently because he had that aha moment. But it took a lot of time to kind of strip away some of the social constructs, the voices that he carried around in his head, his own self-judgments, to be able to be open and true to say, aha, this is really what I want to do. And I've really known it for a long time. I just haven't allowed that inspiration to bubble up and kind of fill my continents.
So let's wrap this up. Physically, emotionally, and inspirationally, what's the most important thing to do first before you try and go on this journey of maybe having cosmetic surgery, if that's what you really want to do?
Figure out what it is that you want to change.
Yep.
What are you really unhappy with? Try to be your best self.
I would piggyback on that, only saying I would be really realistic about what my expectations are going to be. Will I truly be happier?
Well, you can never know unless you go and do it first. I agree. And I think you need to actually work yourself out emotionally before you do anything. Don't you think?
I think so. I think doing your emotional work and your mental health work is gonna spill over into the other two, your physical and then your opportunity to have that spiritual and inspirational growth.
Guys, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I think we've had some good information. I appreciate you guys coming in today to talk about the younger you and what it means to many people out there. I've always been a believer of three things: emotional, physical, and inspirational. If there's anything you can take away from the younger you, I want you to think about what works for you, no one else. It's no one else's business what you decide to do when it comes to creating the younger you. I want to thank you for joining me on my first episode right here in studio. If you want to find out more information, head over to my webpage at theyoungeryou.tv, and we'll see you next week. Next week on The Younger You, Cami, a 41-year-old mother of 4, decided it was time for her to have what we all know as the mummy makeover. Come and follow us on the journey that Cami took us through.